Hey everyone, we're live, or I'm live, at least I'm alone. It's just me right now. I'm supposed to be joined by Mike very soon, but I don't know. I'm going to get in touch with him for a little bit here, so it might just be us, you and I, winging it. Anyway, we'll do as much of a show as we can with just one person in the chat room, which is in there. You guys are in there as well. Yeah, what's going on with my thing? Okay. All right, that's fine. I'm just getting a text message from Mike and Russ. All right. So yes, hello chat room. If any of you in the chat room would like to come on the show today, you would like to be, do you have a webcam? I can invite you in. If you throw on your name into the chat room, or if you want to email me, you want to put your username in the chat room. Actually, I think it's already in the chat room because we have a webcam. Want to come on the show today? Why not, right? We're just hanging out. We're talking about the playoffs, early playoffs here. Mike and Russ are up in Buffalo, and they are at the big Frozen Forest. So you're all good. So anyway, I mean, yeah, let's just start. And honestly, like I said, if any of you guys want to come on today for a little bit, that's fine by me. You just need a webcam and a Google account, which you all have in the chat room, and we can have some guests on today if you like. So let me just get my notes up, which I normally would do with Mike and Russ during a pre-show, but I'll do that now instead. So this is exciting, but it'll just take a second. Anyway, yes, I agree. So far, this has been easily one of my favorite first rounds going. I mean, just like, this is amazing. I mean, it absolutely is incredible. It just keeps getting better and better. And as it goes along here, I can't wait for tonight. I mean, you can't wait. This is what the playoffs are all about. And this is a funny thing I kind of wanted to talk about today. I'll talk to you guys about it as well. Let me get my phone here because I get tons of calls. So right now, my teams I usually root for, aren't in the playoffs. And if your team's not in the playoffs, it's sometimes, I do believe, more fun actually than when your team is in the playoffs. I don't know if that makes sense to you, but I actually find it more fun to have my team not in the playoffs because I can just watch the playoffs and not think about it. I could absolutely just have a blast with it. And all the games, I want all the games to go to overtime. I want all the games to be close. I want all the series to go 7. When your team's in there, it's totally stressful. But when your team's not in there, it's just like, okay, whatever, Of course, everybody still has teams, that they still root for. Like I still have my teams I'm pulling for, of course, but I don't have that emotional connection to anybody. Like I grew up a Flyers fan, obviously. They never let me forget it here. So they it's totally, Mike might be joining us in a second, but I find it just more relaxing because there's nothing more stressful, I know, for those of you who have teams in the playoffs than there's nothing more stressful than when you're down in a series. There's nothing greater than when you're up in a series. It's
Howdy.
So Thomas, you're stressed for tonight in our chat room. He's an Islanders fan. And yeah, you should be stressed, but you are at least up in the series, right? Which is good. That the worst thing is when you're down in a series and it just, the momentum swing back and forth. I was talking to a player on the Blue Jackets this morning, and he was like, yeah, we're excited. They're trying to be, hey, Mike, how you doing?
Howdy.
See if I can get Mike here. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, hey.
I'm here too. You just can't see me. Thanks.
It's Mike and Russ from the car. You guys, just jump on for a second. Let's talk about the Frozen Four with you guys for a sec.
Okay.
While you're up there, and then then we'll let you guys be. I was just talking about I'm going to actually start just introduce the show. I was doing my own little pre-show, but it was basically just I also invited some people to come on who were in the chat room if they had a webcam, but no one seems to be bucking up to do that.
I give you a good 30-second pre-show. I just had a coconut macaroon stout beer. It was great.
Coconut macaroon.
It's good for Passover.
Perfect for Passover. I'm drinking Coke for Passover. Actually. When is Passover anyway? My wife's Jewish. I'm not sure. It's soon, right?
No, No, it's coming up. It's not June. It's like
No, it's soon. It's soon. Yeah, it's very soon.
coming up.
Yeah, coming up soon. All right, so anyway, enough of that. So what are your thoughts on the Frozen Four so far, guys? UMass, obviously, UMass is getting their first trip to the finals, right?
Yeah, UMass first trip to the finals. Although they do have at least one suspended player. I just don't see them getting past Minnesota. Duluth's defense is too good. Their goaltending is good enough, and they cycle the puck really well. UMass has great skaters. Obviously, Cale Makar is the best player in college hockey, but you really can't do it alone. And even last night against Denver, like UMass would get up ahead, Denver would just beat the guy down. Like that game was one of the most physical games I've ever seen. And 3 players were kicked out for headshots. It was pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the Frozen Four is getting to be a lot more entertaining for sure. I think we're getting to see it more. That's the big thing in the United States, at least, that we're getting to see it on TV. Mike, what are your thoughts on that?
We lost you there for a sec. Actually,
you guys are getting a little fuzzy. So I think we'll just why don't you guys just go out somewhere?
It should be better now.
Fine, I'm fine here. I can do this. I can handle this. You guys go drink some beers and have fun. I've laid you out to dry too many times.
We're done.
What was that?
We're parked now. We're parked now.
We're parked.
Okay, your reception's kind of off. It's totally fine. I was kind of excited to not have you on the show because I could finally speak my mind. Like, I thought if you guys weren't on here, I could finally get some things off my chest.
Nobody needs to hear that. Nobody wants.
Oh man. Sure. And if you want to join me, the guy, if you want to come on the show, just give me your give me your just throw you in the chat room, throw your invite, and I'll invite you on Google or whatever. We can get some people on for fun. All right. So Mike, is this your first Frozen Four?
Yes.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
I was impressed with the level of play. I mean, I'm not the biggest appreciator of college hockey, but especially the UMass Denver game was pretty exciting and went to overtime and highly entertaining. And you saw the crowd get into it as well. But I have to freely admit because I took a picture of it. I had one eye on the game there and one eye on my computer watching Toronto Boston.
Yeah, it wasn't like Toronto didn't have a big.
My attention was quite limited when it came.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't like you're not a. It's not like you're not a beat writer for the Maple Leafs playing their first playoff game of the year. You should be watching that game. Damn it.
Yeah. I should be at it, but will not go there.
It's all right. You had to be in the winter. You're at the Frozen Four. The Leafs go to the play. Leafs will be in the playoffs for years to come. When you get a chance to see a Frozen Four. But yeah, let's talk about that game. And by the way, let's get into the Leafs game for a second. By the way, I'm just going to do the quick intro here. Today is April 12th, 2019. I'm Eklund. You're going to have Mike Agello and Russ Cohen in a car somewhere in the area in the outreaches of Cheektowaga.
Yes, right near your favorite Holiday Inn off of Genesee Street.
I've been there. Yeah, I spent a week there one year. Or a year there 1 week, I should say. Yeah, there we go. So, we're going to invite I'm going to invite Lincoln Van Moos onto the show. We're going to have our first ever guest from the chat room. It's be kind of fun.
Get the dump button pretty ready just in case.
I can ban you at any moment. So be nice, guys. Okay. So what are your thoughts on the entire event? I mean, as far not the event, but on the opening night, Toronto. As I told you, they're taking them out in 5. Last night was a preview of the final series score, 4-1.
Well, I can tell you this: what people thought was going to be the narrative of that series was flipped on its head yesterday because everybody was worried about the Leafs responding and being able to deal with the Bruins playing physically and shut down. And instead, now the Bruins have to worry about what they can do to limit the Leafs' speed. Last year, they shut down that stretch pass that the Leafs have been using constantly. They clogged up the middle of the ice, and this time around they didn't. The Nylander goal was a stretch pass from Kadri. Marner was flying on that shorthanded breakaway.
Oh my God, that breakaway was amazing. That we see a lot of shootout goals. We see a lot of penalty shot goals. The moves that were made in that craziness, that was nuts. That move was ridiculous.
And DeBrusk got hurt on trailing Marner and tripping him up. DeBrusk went heavy in the boards and he had to leave the game for a little while. So, I mean, I don't think he was seriously injured, but what I gathered was, and this can be a narrative for the series, or it can be something that's corrected fairly quickly. Bruce Cassidy lost the coaching battle because he accepted the matchup of Tavares against Bergeron. He had the Bergeron-Marchand Pasternak line against Hyman, Tavares, and Marner. And Tavares, while he didn't dominate him, it was a 50-50 battle. Tavares won more faceoffs, had a goal and an assist. That line scored 3 of their four goals. The Pasternak line was -2 on the night, and they were not as dominant as they normally are. Now, if they try to get, and they have the last change, if they try to get Bergeron on Matthews, then it causes a mismatch where Krejci is playing the Tavares line, and that may not be a matchup that Cassidy wants, but that might be a better matchup than having Tavares against Bergeron, because if they shut down Bergeron or limit him, who else is going to score for the Bruins? So I think that's going to be, we're going to see in Game 2 whether the Bruins will change things up. Also, I think the Bruins are probably going to put David back in the lineup because they did not step up physically as they normally do against the Leafs. The Leafs actually outhit them. And if the Leafs can withstand their pressure in Game 2, and I think the Bruins will step it up again, then the Leafs may do what you're saying. But I still think it's going to be a long series, and I still think the Bruins are favored.
I have one thought. The one thing I was worried about Bruins-wise, if you remember, was their third pairing. And I said they would have to rely heavily on the top four. They did rely heavily on the top four, and the top four got tired. And so the Bruins need their other defensemen back. If they don't get them back, that is going to be a big problem for them. The other thing is, we could talk about the Coyle trade all we want and why the Bruins got Coyle and the reasons, and Coyle's a playoff guy and everything else. I don't see it. And unless Charlie Coyle is going to jam the net and start scoring like Phil Esposito, that's going to hurt them. They may end up putting in Backes or Coyle at some point because Coyle just may not do what they want him to do. And that's something where I feel like Cassidy's got to get that under control quickly.
And Coyle had hit a crossbar in the second period and got robbed by Anderson. So he had a couple chances, but he lost the battle head-to-head against Kadri. Yeah. And if he does that, then he's
there are reasons. I don't want to bring our guests on here, but there are reasons that that Minnesota moved him. There were issues. So we're joined by Lincoln. Lincoln, how you doing?
Hey guys, doing great. First time, long time, obviously.
Excellent.
The first one ever.
Thank you for jumping on. Where do you live? What's your deal?
So I'm currently in Boston. So I
nice.
the Gary Bettman protege. I grew up in Nashville. My friend took me to a hockey game when I was 7. Had no idea what it was. My friends didn't know. My mom had no idea what hockey was. She grew up in Kentucky. Went to a hockey game and just had that complete, 7-year-old spaz out. Loved the game, and then ever since, then ended up going to hockey schools in British Columbia, Ontario. Then went up and played in the EJHL in Massachusetts. So then that's kind of how I ended up around here.
Oh, that's amazing! What a cool story.
Yeah, so it's kind of Gary Bettman's exact hope.
You are like the
for how
bringing
that would happen. And it was funny. I was actually talking to my mom last night. We knew so little about hockey. My first year in house league, we bought skates that did not have an edge on it. We didn't know that you had to sharpen skates.
But you had to sharpen them when you first got them. That's awesome.
Who would have known?
Now, how would you know? That's incredible.
No wonder I fell on the ice every time I tried to skate.
Yeah,
right. Yeah. We just thought I was a bad athlete.
I love that story. I mean, so do you relate as a Predators fan or a Bruins fan?
Absolutely a Predators fan. So I've been
Cool.
when you're in Boston, it's really hard to morph into a Boston sports fan.
I love it.
So, I just cannot, everywhere you go, it's, Tom Brady this, Tom Brady that. That's just been impossible. I need them to bottom
It's that
out.
way. It's that way everywhere, and I'm a Jet fan, and I hate it. So I'm with you, dude.
Yeah, so it's hard to get that. So I'm a fair weather Titans fan, which means I don't pay attention to them hardly ever. And
well, no one pays attention to them in the city either, so don't worry.
Yeah, that's fine. So it's been a rough go for football, but yeah, definitely the Predators. And I remember kind of starting to hear about Hockey Buzz, or I don't remember exactly how I got into it, but during the Save the Predators rally back in, what was that, 07, 08, I think.
That was
your site was on there, and then you were down there.
I was there for that.
Yeah, so I dragged my mom. I had to be 12 years old or something. Then I'm 25 now.
That's just a freaking awesome story.
Yeah.
I mean, we're joking around about it because that was about, it was like 13 years ago, roughly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, because my son is 13, and my wife he had just been born when I went to Nashville, and she was like having my head. She's like, "What are you doing going down to Nashville? It's not a game or anything to cover anything." I'm like, I got to go down there because it's such a great scene down there, and I did an album in Nashville, so I just loved it in Nashville, and I thought it was going to be the coolest thing to keep a team there.
You went down there. You went down there for the hot chicken. We know that.
No, I mean, it was so fun. And I spent the entire day with Vernon Fiddler. So I remember about that. Sat next to Vernon Fiddler answering phone calls. And then, and the funny thing was,
were you with him on the roof? Because then it'd be Fiddler on the roof.
Yeah, you know what, Mike?
Oldest joke in the book, Mike.
Yeah, you're really breaking up a little bit, Mike. I'm going to turn you back a little bit. Yeah. So and Barry, I'll never forget Barry Trotz like walking the hallway saying, "Oh, thanks, man. Thanks so much for your doing." It's so cool to now like see where Barry Trotz has gone to from that, from that moment of him like wandering, because how that the bottom level of the Bridgestone Arena. You've been to Bridgestone, obviously.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, the bottom level sort of has like a mallish type feel to it. Like it has like a feel to it like a mall. So we sat where they would do the radio thing was like right there by the window where they smash the cars now, right inside there.
Right. And
you have like the escalator going up like this. You really feel like you're in a food court.
Mm-hmm. No, it's Nashville's a funny town. So especially when I came up here, went to Canada when I was 13 for real hockey training. There was only, I think at the time, 4 sheets of ice in Nashville when I left. And one of those, actually, funny story for Mitch Korn, so the goalie coach with them. We saw back when it was Thomas Vokoun. We saw Vokoun get we had to be 13. I think we were peewees or early bantams. Yeah. And we had a Vokoun and Mitch Korn got into some argument to a point, like on the ice, he was mad about something. Vokoun throws the stick into the stands, and then Mitch Korn gets off the ice, steps onto the wooden stands, gets the stick, spears it back to him.
Wow.
This is with all of the
with everybody's there, right?
Right, with a couple hundred people watching because it was a one-on-one session with Mitch Korn, an NHL goalie.
I mean, Vokoun had a temper. He did.
He had an opinion on everything. Put it that way. Vokoun had an opinion. On everything.
It was clearly a debate about who was better, Taylor Swift or Katy Perry.
That's my story. Getting in trouble because when I was there for the Predators Vancouver series, playoff series. Mm-hmm. Taylor Swift was practicing in another part of I guess it was a Summit Center or whatever it was called at that point. Mm-hmm. And I was walking around down there, and I was seeing I met somebody in her band. I got introduced to her because she was dating a guy who was on the I can't remember who it was, but a guy on the Canucks. And he introduced me. This is my girlfriend Taylor. And Taylor Swift was big, but not like what she's big now. But she was big still. Obviously, she was going to play at big arenas. And I'm like, "Hey, Taylor, what do you do?" That's what I said to her. And as I'm saying this, I'm like realizing who she is. And I'm like, "Oh man, you are Taylor Swift," because I just I was putting it all together that I heard Taylor Swift was practicing there. And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "I'm a musician." I'm like, "I'm sorry, I'm such an idiot." And she was great. She gave me a little signed guitar because my daughter was a huge Taylor Swift fan. But
she's from the Philadelphia area, isn't
she? Yeah, she's from Wyomissing, which is like about 45 minutes north of me.
It's Pennsylvania. It's in Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania it is. No, it's not. Wyomissing, actually, she's like, that's way more suburban than she would probably want to admit it is. Like, it's really just like a really plain old suburban place. Like, it's not.
Actually, wasn't the arena the Gaylord Entertainment Center then?
It was. Everyone called it the GEC.
That's right. They went to the Summit Center for a while. So what I did. This was like the earlier days of Twitter, right? So I was big on Twitter really early. So I tweeted out, hey, Taylor Swift, I just met Taylor Swift. She's practicing here at the arena. I had no idea what that would mean to do. Like, and I didn't know that this was a secret that she was practicing at the arena. And it was like, like an hour later, that was like one of the most retweeted things I've ever done. And like an hour later, there were like tons of girls walking up and down the street, with like little signs. I was so screwed.
I wish I could get that response to some of my tweets.
That's what happens usually when I say I'm with Michael Jello too. You know that, but yeah. So
we're in Buffalo. We don't see tons of girls walking the streets.
I know. Well, Russ, to tell you how exciting it is when we're in town. Russ and I once tweeted out, "We'll meet you guys in the hallway." Remember this in Pittsburgh? We went up like it was the Stanley Cup Finals. We're like, oh, we're outside section 102. Russ and I will be there between the first and second period. Nobody came. Nobody.
Yeah, I remember that.
We sat there talking to each other for an hour. For 15 minutes, whatever it was. It was ridiculous.
Yeah, it felt like an hour. It did.
So, so we can talk Thomas, we can talk Preds, we can talk.
Lack of mom.
Yeah. So great. That's an awesome story. I mean, that is exactly. My gosh, I'm going to have to tell Gary Bettman about this story. No, because
it kind of is.
Absolutely,
exactly what he's talked about.
No, it is, and people don't give Bettman enough credit at all for all this stuff, and he gets ripped all the time. And there's all kinds.
I agree. Bettman's done a great job. I always say it.
The fact that he gets booed, it just makes me sick every year. Like, it just drives me crazy because people have no idea. In Nashville, when he got booed in Ottawa, I was like, holy cow. I mean, that's another place that he kept literally alive. Like, if it wasn't.
Wait a second. He got booed in Ottawa because he was wearing a Eugene Melnick mask.
No. He got booed in Ottawa straight up. Places like Ottawa, places like Edmonton. Obviously Winnipeg hates him but they got a team back. I mean, honestly, they don't get a team back if it's not for Bettman, because believe me, there was not a lot of people that wanted a team back in Winnipeg of the owners. Like if you were to go for the majority of owners, you wouldn't be back in Winnipeg at all. So anyway, yeah. So you actually fell in love with hockey, and then you played competitive hockey, pretty high level.
I did. So the junior hockey, or not juniors, but lower levels of hockey tops out, at least did back then in early mid 2000s, pretty quickly. To where when I was 12 years old and could have played high school and been one of the better ones. So then I ended up going to the Okanagan Hockey Academy in Penticton for 2 years.
Okay.
Yep, I've heard of that. I've heard of that.
Mm-hmm. So that was more ice time than I could have ever wanted.
Yeah, that's
going from practicing twice a week to
after Tennessee. My God.
Yeah, to having people go like, "Oh no, this is how you skate," instead of move your legs faster.
Right.
And then
thank you for the ice every time you get on it.
And then went to the Ontario Hockey Academy, another OHA in Cornwall, Ontario. Did that for a year, and then ended up playing Junior B in the Empire League for a year. This would have been my sophomore year of high school, and then junior and senior year in Haverhill, Massachusetts, for the Valley Junior Warriors in the EJ.
I know Haverhill very well. I've spent a lot of time in Haverhill. That's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, moved around a lot.
So who is the obviously you ended up running across. You played with some NHLers through that time. Or did you ever play against or run into any of them?
Yeah. So
who's like the best player you played against or with?
Colin Blackwell, probably.
Yeah. Okay.
He was on. Oh gosh, he was against me. I don't remember which EJ team, but he was there. And then in our last year, we had Ryan Fitzgerald.
Okay, there you go. Ryan Fitzgerald, pretty good player.
Yeah. So our top line was all D1 commit. So it was them, and then kind of the rest of us.
You know what's amazing about this is like I've always told people about this who are like going through hockey, like or going through any sport with their kids. Because my daughter's playing pretty highly competitive soccer, but there's so many levels to this. Like that you've seen, like you could be the best person in your entire state, and then you could go and meet, like you could go play with a guy who might maybe make it into the AHL, and he could be the best player you ever played against.
God, yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's ridiculous because just to think of that guy and think of what it would be like to play with like a Connor McDavid or something. I mean, these levels they're crazy. And I always tell people when they're and their kids are going for sports, like, just remember there are so many levels.
The most I ever saw when it it kind of dawned on me where there is an aspect of you have to work out, and hard work can and will get
Sure.
you far.
Sure.
But there was an element of, okay, some of these guys are freaks of nature. So worked out every summer at a place called Mike Boyle's in North Andover, Massachusetts. And our group was Chris Kreider, Jack Eichel, 14-year-old Jack Eichel at this point. Everyone knew he was going to be insane already. And a few other guys on my EJ team. And I remember Chris Kreider vividly once. He was doing back squats, and they ran out of room on the bars. They had to bungee cord an extra 45-pound plate on each side. So it's on his back like this, and he's explaining to me the plot of The Hangover 2 and how it wasn't as good as the first one. While he's doing squats, the bar is bending on his back. He's not even.
He does. There's a video of him. I showed it to X. We played it on the show. I think he's doing like 800-pound squats.
It's unbelievable.
Great.
He's a complete freak of nature.
That's nuts.
That doesn't impress me at all. I do that with one leg.
Yeah, right.
And then Eichel, when he was 14, and I remember somebody telling me who ended up going to the U.S. development program, said, "Oh no, he's so far ahead of all of us." And this was when they were 13 and 14, and I was 18. I was really impressed with myself because I hit 200 pounds and almost no body fat. I was really excited.
Right.
This 14-year-old comes up and he cleans 215.
Oh
yeah.
And there's not an ounce of muscle on this kid's body. I'm just like, what the heck is going on? And then eventually I start hearing his name more. I'm like, okay, he's
Oh God,
one of those people.
I saw him when he was 17 at the All-American Prospects game, and I was like, my God, this guy's ridiculously ripped for a prospect.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote about it because I just couldn't believe he was in that kind of condition.
Eichel is one of the funniest people I've ever met. And that's the other thing about my favorite story. And then we'll get on to this is a great show. I'm just loving this. We need to do this more often. Meet the people.
Absolutely.
Meet people out there and have you. This is great. We got a Predators Bruins guy now. This is great. We need another Predators person.
Cousin Eddie's not allowed to come on.
Yeah, fantastic. So my favorite story with Eichel, we were going into Chicago. It was covering the Chicago Stanley Cup final against Tampa, right? So I guess it was Tampa, right? Was it Tampa? Yeah, recently Tampa. Was it Chicago, Tampa?
No.
Who Chicago play? What am I thinking? When they won their last Stanley Cup. Their last Stanley Cup they defeated.
That's 2015. Tampa. Was it Tampa?
Tampa,
Tampa. Yeah. Sorry.
So we take the bus from the United Center back to the hotel. In Chicago, traffic was stupid. It was like you could have walked easily back. It was like an hour and a half, and we were and on the bus. They would play. They had a television, and they were just playing the NHL tonight. And we must have seen it like it was on repeat. We must have seen it like 3 times the whole thing. So I sitting directly behind me, the prospect, because they bring prospects to one game in the Stanley Cup Finals. So the prospects were in the same bus I was. So directly behind me was McDavid sitting next to Eichel. And they're both prospects. They're both kids. And the entire time, Eichel is just ripping on McDavid, like in hilarious ways. Nothing mean, but just like they would show a play and they would say, "Oh, he missed it," and Eichel would say to McDavid, "Yeah, you would have gotten that. You would have gotten that, Connor, right? You would have made that play. Yeah, that's easily for you." And he was like, McDavid was like, "Oh, no." He was like, "Oh, he's being Canadian polite and everything." Eichel just kept it going the whole time. I mean, the whole bus was we were all ended up being listening to this thing, just crack it up. And he was just like, how old was 17 they were? And here is the kid who, he's going up against, who everybody's like, oh, they're going to be 1 and 2. And he knew, he obviously knew that he's like, you're so much better than me. I mean, I don't make that play, but that's why I'm number 2 and you're number 1. He was saying that kind of stuff. It was great. It was great. He's such a classy, funny guy. All right, let's get into some of the games here too. Last night, again, not to point out that I was right one more time about Toronto, but we already talked about the Maple Leafs.
Oh my God, it's one game. God.
And my guarantee I made that Columbus would win game 1. Do we not forget? Do we remember that too? Come on now.
Big deal.
No. I've had a hellish week, so give me this, Russ.
All right, fine.
All right. So anyway,
I refuse to give it to you. No, I give it.
The other two games last night, Calgary. I mean, what was their question? Goaltending, right? I think they answered that question last night, at least for one night.
One game. One game does not a series make. That's the problem here. It's like, I'm not going to draw the conclusion after one game that the Islanders are going to beat the Penguins. No, I'm not. I refuse to do that.
Yeah.
Now, Calgary got good goaltending out of Mike Smith. If they get good goaltending out of Mike Smith, they'll win in 4 or 5 games.
Right.
Do I expect them to get good goaltending out of Mike Smith every single game? No. I mean, if you know, so I mean, it was a good first.
Not to interrupt you, but I will. You're forgetting that Mike Smith does have experience playing in the playoffs,
and that's why they played him ahead of David Rittich. But I'm saying what he did in the regular season does not exactly make Flames fans exude any kind of confidence. He's a goaltender who might be pretty close to being done. He didn't play very well this year. He's had injury problems. He's in the final year of his contract. They didn't go out at the deadline and get themselves a goaltender because they think that one of these two goalies or maybe both of them can get them through. But if he, like I said, if he plays like he did in Game 1 for the rest of the series or for the rest of the playoffs, they have a good chance of running the table and being a Stanley Cup winner. Do I expect it? No.
And honestly, I was not on board having Grubauer in there Game 1. That was silly too.
That was it. Remember, did I not talk about the fact that? Oh shoot! I gotta take this call, guys. 1 second, okay?
Okay. This is 2 years in a row now that Philip Grubauer has started a series that I don't believe he'll finish, and he did it for Washington, and he got pulled from Washington, and I think he's going to eventually get pulled from this series too. Varlamov's a big time goalie. Like I like Grubauer. I remember how many times I've talked about him on this show. But if I'm going to match him up against Varlamov, I'm putting Varlamov every time.
Well, I think what's at play here is that Grubauer is the guy that's under contract.
I know. I don't care.
I know, but they apparently do because there's no reason based on. I mean, I know that Grubauer had a winning streak near the end of the year, but in general, I think Varlamov was the better of the two goaltenders during the season.
Yeah.
And is the better of the two goalies. Period. So if that's the case, if Colorado was out there to give themselves the best chance to win, they should be playing Varlamov. They played Grubauer in Game 1. They'll probably play Varlamov in Game 2.
I mean, look, Mike Smith had the game of his life. Luke, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I was kind of waiting to see if the Colorado line would, so that their first line with McKinnon, I watched them last year kind of dominate the, supposedly vaunted Predators defense. And they played very well and, tired the Predators defense out. And I didn't catch a lot of the game, but I was a little concerned going in. Colorado is my underdog pick just because you have to pick one.
For mine too.
Every time.
One thing I saw, and granted, I was watching the game without volume on a monitor at the KeyBank Center, so I didn't catch everything. But what I did see, it wasn't the big three together on Colorado. I know they had Calvert playing with Landeskog and McKinnon. I don't know whether Rantanen was even in the lineup.
He was in the lineup.
Oh, he was in the lineup. Okay, so what Jared Bednar is doing is he's trying to create two offensive lines by splitting his big three. In the end, I mean, maybe against Calgary he has to do that because Calgary is deep. They're probably a 3-line team, but your best chance of success is loading all your talented guys on one line and hoping.
Yeah, that's what I would do. I mean, honestly, here's the game plan. Stay alive long enough to get Cale Makar in the lineup. Honestly, that is the game plan. And I swear, I mean, it's the NHL level.
How is that going to work, though, walking right into the playoffs and you know this better than most, but, walking out of the NCAA and then having to suddenly take in the NHL playoffs, is that possible? I mean, we're watching Gabbro try to do it.
Yeah, Kreider did it against Montreal, and he did it pretty seamlessly. I think Makar will do it very seamlessly as well.
And Makar at times yesterday, early in that game against UMass against Denver, was dominant. Now he did not throughout the entire game, but he's a man amongst boys in this tournament. So I mean, more than likely after the final on Saturday, I would not be surprised that he signs his contract on Sunday. And he's probably in the lineup.
Isn't there a rule that you have to sign before the deadline? I'm confused.
No.
He is their property. They have his right.
Yeah.
Okay.
They can sign him at any time.
He goes right in.
And he goes right in.
Remember the most famous one of these kind of situations? It happened back when the Flyers series against the Oilers in 1984. I want to say this is the first time. Yeah. So the opening. I'm in Philly. It's game 3, I think, of the series, and I'm in Philly. I'm sitting with my parents in the seats, and they announced the starting lineup: Wayne Gretzky at center, right wing Yari Curry, left wing, Issa Tikkanen. We're like, what now? You know, like no one had ever heard the name Issa Tikkanen before. We're joined by Mr. McKinnon. How you doing?
Hey.
Hey, we can hear you. Hey, we can hear you. Thanks.
I'll give you one more, X. Ryan Leach from BC to the Olympics, back to BC to the Rangers.
Okay, cool.
And back in the 80s, and this was coming out of junior, and that's happened a lot of times as well.
Yeah.
Daniel Merwa for the Leafs stepped in the playoffs against Detroit, and I think he scored a goal in his first playoff game. So, I mean, it's not unprecedented that a young player comes in the playoffs. So, I mean, it would be unusual that it's a college player, but, this is a guy who could win the Hobey Baker. He might win the Hobey Baker. He probably will win the Hobey Baker.
Bad, though, because he is knocking somebody out of the lineup. Like he's knocking somebody out of the lineup that's played all year.
Doesn't matter. Their defense isn't good enough to keep everybody in there.
Yeah, and we asked yesterday, who would it be? It's like, is it Nikita Zadorov?
No, it's not the.
I don't know who it is, because Zadorov's a big mean player, but it's not Tyson Berry, it's not Eric Johnson, but whoever it is, it's probably going to be an upgrade.
Hey, Mike, don't talk too loud because you're so close to the microphone. It's adjusted to Russ, so when you talk, sometimes you break up a little bit. So you
Sorry, I'm
loud. No, you're fine. So we are joined by another special guest from our chat room, Mr. McKinnon. What's your first name?
Nick.
Hey, Nick. Yeah. Thanks for joining. Where are you? Where do you live?
I live in central-ish Ontario, Orangeville.
Central Ontario, cool.
It's about an hour, I guess, north of Toronto.
Nice. So, like,
an hour from Toronto.
What's the town like? Yeah. What's the town like? Is that like Is it Marco, or what's the town up there?
Oh, Markham? No, it's a much more small town, I would say.
Okay, gotcha. Cool.
Yeah, kind of like a
home of the not future second NHL team in Southern Ontario that Graham Lewiston wanted to build, but that never will happen. And the home of Steven Stamkos, I believe.
Yeah.
So Nick, what are your thoughts then on the Leafs Bruins last night? Then, are you a Leafs fan first off?
No, yeah, for sure. Okay, it was a good game. They really dominated. At the first half, I listened on the radio because I had to work a little bit late, so on the way home. But no, when I did catch it, they were pretty dominant.
Right.
Yeah, Matthews looked really good, even though he hit a couple posts and everything. Anderson looked really good. Tuukka Rask, he looked a little bit iffy at the beginning, but he turned it on at the end too with a couple of really nice saves as well. But
let me just build on that, because I saw a lot of commentary, and there was an article by Fudo Shinzawa in the Boston Globe about Rask not making the big save. I mean, honestly, one goal was scored on a penalty shot. Which was on a shorthanded breakaway. Another goal was a stretch pass for a breakaway. The one was an empty netter, which he's not responsible for. And the first goal was a mad scrum in front of the Boston net that nobody had control of. To blame Tuukka Rask is idiocy.
But that's what they do in Boston. They do that.
But Lincoln, you'll back me up because he's in Boston. I'm sure he's hearing plenty of this. This Tuukka Rask fear is not new, right? I mean, they've been worried about this going in. This was like a preconceived worry that they had going into the playoffs, right?
If it starts raining in Boston, it's because of Tuukka Rask. He seems to be there. He is their scapegoat for everything, and because the narrative around this series, definitely in Boston, has been, the Bruins are going to take care of business quickly and can't wait for the Tampa matchup. So then for the Bruins to get beat at home in game one, now, I can see it on, all my friends on Twitter, stuff in the Globe. They're all freaking out and, blaming Tuukka Rask for only scoring one goal.
Right. And Brad Marchand.
What do you want him to do?
What do you want him to do, right? And I agree he didn't play poorly. He didn't play great. I mean, he's got to stand up on his – he's going to have to play incredible. I mean, this is a great offense he's going against. Let's face that. I mean, that's the thing. That's what bothered me about this whole prediction, that everybody and Marchand, who you just got to love, who comes out with always says the stupidest, inappropriate things at the wrong times. Of course, comes out and says, I think we thought this would be a little bit easier. This Brad Marchand's quote. I mean, come on.
I'm not sure they thought that. He's just trolling them. He's always trolling. I do want to say, I looked it up.
But is that not a dumb thing to do to a team?
No, but he wants to do that. This is what Brad Marchand lives for. I do want to say for Colorado, Patrick Nemeth's probably the guy that comes out.
Right. Okay. But the thing is with Rask, at the end of the second period, he stopped Tavares on a breakaway, and he stopped a 3-on-1 in the last seconds of the second period. I think if he hadn't have done that, either if one of those goals went in, or those incidents never happened, you might have seen Yaroslav Halak. Now I don't know whether they're going to go with Halak.
I think you're going to see him. I think you're going to see him for sure.
I'm not so sure. Now Halak played 3 of the 4 games against Toronto during the regular season, so he's seen this team before.
And he won 2 of them, right? 2 of them.
I think won 2 of them. Yeah. So the only thing is that you're going to see Boston step it up physically and try to make it more of an
issue. I mean, that's not the issue with Boston. The physical aspect is not, to me, is not the issue. The issue is like when they made the move, then they moved Donato, out, and they moved some players out. They moved some speed out, like, and they were.
He didn't play. He wasn't playing last year.
He didn't even.
I know he didn't play last year, but I'm just saying Coyle is, not as speedy as Donato. And the balance is like, okay, you want to be more physical than the Leafs. They're more physical. They are more physical than the Leafs, obviously, right? But that balance has to be held so that they still have to skate with the Leafs to be more physical than the Leafs. They have to stay with them.
Well, I mean, Lincoln will know this, is that they put Carson Kuhlman in on their second line based solely on the fact that he's a quick skater, and because they thought that the matchup against the Leafs would be bad. Now I think you're being passive if you're Bruce Cassidy deciding I have to match Toronto's speed. The way you have to beat Toronto is the way you beat Toronto last year, which is to be physical with them. And you know what? The thing was, early in the game, they drew Toronto into stupid penalties. Nylander took a high sticking call, started capping it. If they keep doing that, maybe the Leafs are mature enough to not respond, but I don't know.
You know what? I'll tell you, I would go unprecedented here. Their third pairing is a hot mess. Rather than using Clifton, I would rather use Urho Vakanainen. I would put Vakanainen in there. I know he's over the concussion problems. He's a way better skater. He's a bigger body. This is where Cassidy can't be afraid to use young guys in big situations because he is afraid of that. Like, that's the one thing Cassidy has.
Nick, I want Nick's opinion on this because what I saw.
Because the cancer, you might as well just mail it in.
Yeah. What I saw clearly, Nick, was the idea of, it looked like to me the Bruins, when they make moves like that, are playing not to lose, and versus, versus playing to win, which the Leafs were playing to win. So, what are your thoughts, Nick?
Yeah, I definitely agree that, and just on the physicality side, I do think Boston was less physical than what I've seen them before. Yeah. But I agree. It could have been a speed thing. The Leafs actually, I think, matched their physicality at some points of the game.
They had more hits.
Yeah, for sure. I didn't look that up, but just eye test, it seemed that way. Yeah. So I really felt they brought it to them for sure.
Yeah, I thought that I was just really impressed. And I'm still feeling like things are now going to really get interesting, right? Because the Bruins, there's one thing it sucks to be a favorite as heavy as they're a favorite in the series. There's no two ways about that. How many times have we seen coaches, Russ and I joke about it all the time, tell us how terrible their team is and how much better the other team is than theirs. It's like that's like in the playoffs. That's what you have to do. It's like, oh yeah, man, we're gonna be lucky if we even can skate on the ice with that team over there. It's like they just constantly play it down to the point of ridiculousness to try not to be the favorite. No one wants to be a favorite. And,
right. The problem with the Bruins is though, like when their scoring isn't going, they miss even a guy like Sean Corelli. Sean Corelli is a good fire plug for them and he's a good spark for them, and his speed is really good, and he will make some things happen on fourth line matchups. Like that, unfortunately, that little kind of tweak does affect them.
Yeah, they're missing Corrali, they're missing Kevin Miller.
Yeah,
John Moore is a veteran seventh defenseman, and they're missing him. I was saying before,
hey, there's one game, and suddenly you're missing all these players. You got these issues. It's only one game.
No. If you read my column on Hockey Buzz, you know that those guys were off because I mentioned it.
I don't read your column, Mike. But others do. A lot of people do. So I know other people will vouch for you. So
right now, you're right, X. Honestly, you're right. The series is over. Plan the parade in Toronto. You're right.
I'm heading up.
Thank you.
I'm parking my car in Burlington so it doesn't get flipped over by rabid Leaf fans, and we're going up for the parade. Let's do it now.
No, I'm not saying a parade. They're going to get smoked. They'll get smoked by Tampa, but I'm just saying that they are going to win this series.
I'll get Pete Simkowski on the show so he could show up the 67 ring so everybody could see it out in Ontario. Just so they
because we all know I was born in 1968, so I am the curse of the Leafs. I've always said that. All right, so so what I want to get now. I want to move on to the Predators series, but since we have Lincoln here, and that to me is continues tonight and is going to be it does continue tonight, right? They're back.
No, they play tomorrow at 6 Eastern.
Okay, right. So they get the night off. I hate that. I'm not a big fan of the extra night off, especially when you lose, especially when you're at home and you lose game one. There's no way in the world the Predators want that extra night off right now.
No, it's been a lot of panic in Predators Facebook and Predators Twitter. It's been almost comical to watch. So in the final 10, towards the end of that, most of Predators fans were wondering, where is that it factor? Even when I think in the last 10 they went 7-1-2, something, something along those lines. They had a strong record in the finish, but that spark wasn't there. They just, that it factor wasn't there. And then in the last 3, it seemed like they had found it. So then everyone is thinking, okay, we're fine. Kyle Turris and Cale Granlund are going to magically figure it out because it's the playoffs now. And we go in, and it just wasn't there. Pekka played great. That's he has a little bit of the Tuukka Rask syndrome when the playoffs start. A lot of fans get out on him because he has when you look back in a lot of the past Predators series, when they lose, Pekka Rinne is typically not at the top of his game, even if it's not his fault. Right. So it's been. I don't know what they're going to do. That second line with Craig Smith, Turris, and Granlund are not going to get going. The Bonino line did not play well. So then, and Wayne Simmons hasn't been there.
No,
it has been a huge regret.
We could all tell you, Lincoln, that Wayne Simmons was probably not going to be there.
This is the thing I'll say about I watch every Predators game, and I thought that was among the best games he's played so far for the Predators.
What, he had 1 goal for them? How many? He had 1 goal.
He hasn't played well at all. But the reality is he is a gamer. And
stop! When he could skate, we got to move on from that.
No. Listen. He made some. He made some beautiful plays on the power play in that game one. I mean, he made some.
When the puck is in the offensive zone, hold on. When the puck is slowed down in the offensive zone, he could definitely make some plays. When the game is
power play,
he can't do it.
If I'm the Predators, I'm playing him on the fourth line in every power play, and that's what I'm doing. That's clearly what he does.
The funny thing was
that might be right. Actually,
the funny thing is that in the middle of the year we were talking about Simmons in terms of free agency and what the Flyers were willing to offer him, and it was probably maybe a 3 or 4 year deal, and he was looking for something much longer. I'm telling you right now, with the quick decline of him after being traded from the Flyers, he's a guy that a team is probably going to offer a 1 or 2 year deal. He's not going to get a 4 year deal.
I totally agree. I think that's the unfortunate thing. Yeah, but I still am going to, since we've already proven how right I can be. I'm just going to ride this until I'm wrong. I picked Edmonton to win the Central, so let's just not to win the Pacific.
That was a good one.
But let's just remember this now. I do think that Simmons will be heard from in this series. Now whether or not that comes, and I think it's going to be in the power play.
It could probably have a fight,
or it could be a fight. It could be a fight too. No, it could be actually.
They're going to have to. They're going to have some type of secondary scoring because outside of the Johansson line, nobody else is doing it. So if it's not Wayne Simmons or Brian Boyle, it might not come. And this could be
you can't expect Brian Boyle to do that much either. You can't.
Yeah, that's the issue with the Predators is he has to be because nobody else is scoring outside of Johansson.
Right. The big issue with me
is terrifying.
The big issue with me has always been Kyle Turris. I'm just not a Kyle Turris guy at all. I just think he scores meaningless goals a lot, but he's not when push comes to shove.
So he's the A-Rod of hockey.
They gave him way too much.
He's been a disappointment, and when he came in after that Girard trade, he kind of ignited the secondary scoring. So him, Smith, and Fiala were fantastic. He was on.
Victor Arvidsson was practically, if not your top goal guy. Where's he been? Like, he's the guy that's got to help pace the offense and the blue line. A Peter Laviolette team has to get points from the blue line. They have plenty of guys who could do it. Well, Subban should be under fire at this point. Like, their blue line.
They're the only ones who scored.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Game one.
You're right.
The problem is nobody else scored. They had 6 points in the first game, 2 goals with 2 assists.
Right.
Of those 6 points, 4 of them were defense.
Right, but you got that. They're going to have to do that every game. But I'm saying, did Subban have any of those points?
Yeah,
Subban scored
the second goal. Yeah. All
right. But that was an incredible goal. That was one of my favorite goals of the season, and one of my favorite PK Subban goals ever. I mean, it was just an amazing goal that he scored. And Yossi's first goal was incredible too. I mean, that was like a pure.
I saw the Yossi goal.
That was a goal that not many defensemen can make that play and score on that backhand like that. Like that Yossi was ridiculous.
But
and seeing that, it's almost sad.
Yeah, it is. No, it is
because it almost looked like, I'm in a large Predators texting group, and we started joking through the second period when Yossi had a good rush. Is this kind of what Ottawa looked like with Erik Karlsson?
Yeah.
It was just a one-man team.
That's a little rough.
Nobody else was. It was, but
I am proud of Predators fans for turning into actual hockey fans. The negativity is the one thing Predators fans that were never like that super hard on their team, that they really are pulling it together now. They're taking you want to be in a negative thing, be in a texting group with Mike. Yeah, I was joking.
Speaking of Mike, pull up Mike Fisher. Maybe he needs a job still.
No, but it's funny because it's actually
a job that a lot of guys would want.
All right, so let's go to a couple of. We got to be running out of time, but and I'm going to get Nick's opinion on this one too, because we're going to go back to the other conference and Tampa Columbus tonight. Okay, and what happens in this game, because obviously Columbus stole that game. And if Tampa, it felt like if Tampa had another 30 seconds, they could have scored a couple more goals. They were just.
You did call that win, though, Eck. I remember you calling game 1 win.
You're welcome back anytime, Lincoln. Anytime.
I don't think he thought it would go that way, and I don't think he thought Tampa would take their foot off the gas.
Yeah, I picked Donald Trump too. So just
no.
Jeez, bite your tongue. All right, so let's talk. I mean, tonight. Obviously, from a Maple Leafs Bruins perspective, they're all in on Columbus. But what are your thoughts, Nick?
Yeah, I think Columbus, if they do the same thing, they might be successful. I think that Tampa has to have a good start. They need to come out and set the pace if they want to really get going. If they get into a grinding match and Bobrovsky's on his game, things could be tight.
Yeah.
One little bit of news here. Anton Stroman will not play. Now, he's not one of their top 4 anymore. He's like a 5 or 6, but he is an experienced veteran guy. I don't know what that means in terms of who.
Well, McQuaid's top 4 on any other team, pretty much. He's a really good player.
He's a decent player now. You know what? I think if you're Tampa, don't engage in that baloney that Brandon Dubinsky and Courts wanted to at the beginning of the game. Ignore it, skate around it, don't get in the penalty box, and they can put up another sizable lead, and this time they can hold it. That's what they really need to do, and I think Nick is right, and I think they just need to focus on their game. They tried to get Macho in that game, and Torts wanted that. Torts won that battle with John Cooper in that game, he did.
No, he definitely did. And I mean, it was a couple things went against Tampa. There's nothing worse than the 3-goal lead in the first period. We've seen that many times. The weird thing about this is the crazy memory of Columbus in the playoffs coming from behind 3 goals. This is you guys remember way back against, it was the Pittsburgh Penguins series, I think, quite a few years ago, where they came from 3 down 3-0 3 times in that series. When they were up 3-0, I'm thinking, wow, that's probably exactly where they want to be. But Columbus, so I think that there are some people that I've talked to that think this is the best thing that could have happened to Tampa. That Tampa needed some kind of a shot. If they just roll over Columbus, then they could be in trouble against Boston or Toronto, because they haven't played with any adversity. Now they're facing serious adversity, which they need to do because they haven't played with adversity since Christmas.
And you see that a lot with with the president President's Trophy teams.
Yeah,
The same thing happened with Nashville last year.
Yeah.
They rolled through the season. I think they only lost consecutive games twice the entire year.
Yeah.
They get to the playoffs, all of a sudden, it's just not there.
Yeah.
Colorado had reached,
I remember that Colorado game. Yeah.
They rose their game a little bit, and Nashville couldn't. I don't know if they were expecting it. There is something mental where when the playoffs hit and a team that hasn't had to look inward, they just can't reach it. And I don't know what that is. I don't know if there's, a sports psychologist that can come to these teams and figure it out.
Hockey is like the one sport that plays into more than any other. I mean, this is the sport where if you are overconfident, you're in trouble. And if you're not playing with an edge, you're in trouble. And that, tonight Tampa will have their edge because they have to, but they're not going to have their edge against Columbus. I mean, they outscored them like 15-1 in the regular season or whatever in their 3 games they played against. It was just kind of ridiculous. So, yeah, I mean, you're going to see it tonight, and we're going to see what they're made of because they haven't played under any pressure for a very long time.
And it seemed to get to their heads a little bit. I mean, Tampa canceled practice yesterday to have a meeting.
That was a strange.
I mean, they are. Do you think they're in their heads, or was that just a let's clear the deck and new slate?
To me, that was Cooper. Knowing Cooper, to me, that's like Cooper basically saying, we screwed up, we're fine. That's his
Okay.
way. That's his way of not having them have to talk to the media. Basically, I think that's more about you don't want to go into the say you've lost the home ice advantage. All the questions they're going to get. You lost the home ice advantage. You're screwed up now. All your great record. You could be the worst failure of all time if you lose them. You didn't want to have them to answer those questions, and that's not a team that has to practice in the off day anyway. So
that's very true. And I have a friend that I played hockey with who's from Columbus. So of course he's been loving this, and it's fun to have the Columbus fan perspective. So they came in kind of like all of us, please God, don't play Tampa, don't play Tampa.
I know.
Oh crap, we're playing Tampa.
Yeah.
And then they get in, there's like, well, we're just happy to be here. Maybe we'll, there's that old stat, which I don't know how true it is, where the team will make about $1 million cash per home playoff game.
Oh yeah, that's very true.
Oh, that's true.
Okay.
We do need to bring up the Islanders Penguins series because that's also tonight.
Yeah.
There is a point. I made a point 2 days ago that Mike said somebody also echoed on air yesterday, and that basically is they're playing at such a high pace, at such a high physicality rate, that I think they're eventually going to burn themselves out against the Penguins. And it wouldn't shock me if they even go 2-0 in this series, like I said when we previewed the series, because these home games are giving them so much extra. Like the crowd is over the ice, they're getting pumped up, but they're going to run out of gas at some game in this series because they don't have the personnel to do that to match that with Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh's not the same. But you know what? When you saw them tie up the game, you knew that, all right, you know what? Even at their mediocre worst in that series, Pittsburgh was still able to tie it up. And that's a problem for the Islanders, I think.
And you can also say that there are not many games in the playoffs where a guy wearing number 87 was a complete and utter non-factor. And Crosby was not much of a factor in game one. That's not going to happen. No, wait. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen going forward unless he's injured. Which
he's not.
He's not.
He looked good in the third period.
Right, but it took him a while to sort of get into the space. And we know based on what Crosby does, when Crosby starts to get hit, starts to get part of the action, it energizes him. He will be a factor in the series. And the reason I picked Pittsburgh in 6 is because I don't see how the Islanders match up with both Crosby and Malkin. Malkin was involved. He was part of the action. Crosby really wasn't. Once he is, and for him and Malkin, then I think, one, fatigue will set in with the Islanders, and 2, they can't match up with those two guys.
I want to say that this Crosby, where I have seen this Crosby before, like that Crosby was last year against the Capitals and Barry Trotz. Barry Trotz has figured out Crosby to a degree. I mean, as much as you can, and he is absolutely. Crosby is going to get inside. It's going to get inside Sid's head a little bit. I agree with you with Malkin. The thing with Malkin is kind of disappointing is you're like, geez, everybody says, he steps up so well in the playoffs. It makes you wonder, come on, is he just mailing it in the regular season? He's so good that he can do that, I mean,
at the Pekin used to do it. But Malkin, when he mails it in, still gets 95 points on a year. It's just not really mailing it in. I will say this: the guy who really stepped up for Pittsburgh, who probably will step up again, is Phil Kessel. The minute the playoff bell rings for him too, all of a sudden he starts getting open in the slot, and his shot's deadly if you give him a second. That was something that was pretty apparent early in the game. I think they did patch it up later. And Letang had a really good game other than the mistake in overtime, and he admitted to it. But offensively, he was playing great, and he was playing really physical. So I think this will be another really tight game. But if the Islanders go up 2-0, I still don't think the Penguins are in trouble.
He lights it up when the playoff bell and when the dinner bell was lighting up.
Well,
one thing I would be worried about if I'm an Islanders fan is, outside of last year, Barry Trotz has been, he has a long history of bringing bad to mediocre teams to the playoffs, and then not being able to do anything.
Right.
I watched him do that. I watched him do that for 10 years with Nashville.
Oh yeah.
They were just happy to be there.
Right.
And then, or the Paul Kariya years against San Jose, where they actually had a good team, and then chokes.
No, I mean the year for Forsberg and everything.
Right. So I still don't know if, was last year a fluke? Does he deserve the benefit of the doubt? Probably. He probably does. But, that's always, if I'm an Islanders fan, Barry Trotz's overall record in the playoffs has to be in the back of my mind.
To me, what that is, and from watching and following the Preds so closely and following the Islanders closely this year too, was that his teams play at such a high level all the time that they do wear out in the playoffs. I feel like they don't, they're exhausted. I mean, the Islanders, for the Predators to make the playoffs back then, they had to play playoffs type hockey for most of the year. Same thing with the Islanders this year. And, some teams like the Penguins, they didn't have to play playoff type hockey. So they have a lot more energy left, so they've got a lot more in the tank. Although, Leonard played amazing and outplayed Matt Murray in that game for sure. And Matt Murray could be a problem for them. I mean, Matt Murray has looked shaky to me in the last couple of weeks of the regular season. And, and then in the first game, definitely, because, I think Thomas was saying in the chat room that he was at the game and he said that the Penguins outplayed the Islanders for most of the game and that Murray was shaky in nets. I felt like that was true. Although that is also deceptive because the thing this is where Barry Trotz is brilliant against the Penguins. And we've talked about this many times. The weird thing about the Penguins is, for as good as they are and as talented as they are, they want to be a counterattack team, which is always, they are a counterattack. They're built to counter you. They're not built to attack you, which is so surprising because usually teams that are that skilled will bring it to you. The Penguins love to counter and they make your defense really nervous and they constantly are, so if you play counter against them, which is what the Islanders did, and which is what the Predators would always be the team waiting for the other team to make the mistake. If you play that against the Penguins, they forces them to attack you, and they don't like being in that position. So,
one thing that we don't have an answer to, and still no answer, why Jack Johnson was a healthy scratch.
Yeah, I heard about that. I know. Hold on.
All right, just so while Eck is away for a second, the news came out today, so it's not any great shock to Russ or I or anybody who heard the report earlier in the week. Bob McKenzie reported that Todd McClellan, who supposedly was in the mix for the Buffalo job, is no longer part of the mix. And honestly, I was skeptical of the report from the very beginning, in spite of the person who is somebody we know and trust. But it smacked of something being floated out there to get the Los Angeles Kings to up their offer on McClellan. And now McClellan is going to talk with the Kings this week, apparently. And it wouldn't be shocking if he gets the job, which was rumored all along. But yeah. I think Buffalo again was used like they were used in the Babcock situation. This is not a plum job. Maybe Elaine Vigneault is interested if that name has popped up on Buffalo radio the last 24 hours. But this is not, this is probably next to Ottawa, the least attractive of the head coaching availabilities in the NHL. And I don't think you're going to get a big name unless somebody's desperate for a job.
I mean, McClellan had a choice. He could make a left or go wide right. He went wide right.
All right. On
that note, we're gonna drop off here.
We do have to end the show anyway. I wanted to thank you so much, Nick, for jumping on.
Thank you, Eck.
Thank you, Lincoln, for jumping on. You
guys, anytime.
You guys were awesome, and honestly, we will do this.
Yeah, you guys were great.
It was good stuff. It was really good stuff.
So much.
And thanks again for watching. Have a great weekend. Remember, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you on Monday.